Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a very interesting forecast in the 2024 presidential election from The Economist, which they give Donald Trump a 2 in 3 chance, roughly 66%, of winning this election. On top of what we all know, that Donald Trump is always overestimated, both in 2016 and in 2020. So his margin can actually be greater than the 301 electoral votes that they already give him to Joe Biden's 237. And he only needs 270, and he's already passing 300 according to The Economist forecast. But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed and click the bell so you don't miss out on any of my content. Also, we have memberships. If you are interested, you can find a link to that in the description section. Now back to the topic of today's video. I'm going to be breaking down this election forecast from The Economist. So in Biden's best case scenario, he gets 349 electoral votes at the very most. And then in his worst case scenario, he gets 158 at the very least. As of today, he gets 237, which is a loss for the incumbent president. As for Donald Trump, the former president, he's at 301. And in his best case, he gets 380 electoral votes, which is higher than Biden's best case. And then as for Trump's worst case, his worst case is actually higher electoral votes than Biden at 189. So both the worst case scenario for Donald Trump and the best case is higher than Joe Biden. And then as for national polls, with the popular vote, Biden's trailing the former president, in which he never trailed him 4 years ago back in 2020. Donald Trump is winning nationally by 0.6% according to this forecast. And now here's when things get really interesting. Donald Trump's up in the state of Michigan by 1%, and he's also up in Wisconsin by 2%, in which both of those states underestimated the former president, so his margins may get even greater in these states. And the chance of the entire election coming down to the state of Michigan is at 14%. In Wisconsin, it's at 8%. And in the highest swing state that can ultimately decide the entire outcome of who wins this election happens to be the Rust Belt state of Pennsylvania, in which Trump is up by 3%, which is horrible news for Joe Biden. Pennsylvania is sitting at the highest chance at 24% of being the deciding factor of this race, which I agree with. I do think this race is ultimately going to come down to Pennsylvania. But keep in mind, Trump can still win the election without it, but Biden cannot. Therefore, Biden's pathway to victory is harder than Trump's. And Donald Trump's lead in Nevada is also at 3%. Even in Arizona, 4 points. Biden won both of those states back in 2020. Even Georgia, Biden won it. Trump's up by 4%. Yet again, these are not good news for Joe Biden. And now this is actually pretty interesting. Can these candidates win the election without these type of states? For example, in Michigan, Joe Biden has a 5% chance of winning the election without carrying the state of Michigan. That is more than likely not going to happen. He must carry the state of Michigan. It's a must win. He won this state by nearly 3 points, which is the highest margin for any of the most than 3 important Rust Belt states. As for Pennsylvania, Biden's chance of winning the election without it is at 7 points. Yet again, this is another must win for him. Trump, on the other hand, can win the election without carrying Pennsylvania, but it's the opposite for Biden. He must carry Pennsylvania. And then as for Wisconsin, Biden has an 8% chance of winning the election without carrying this Rust Belt state. And then as for Arizona, his chance slightly increases, but it's still significantly low. He's at a 19% chance of winning the election without carrying the state of Arizona. Even Nevada, if Biden loses Nevada in 2024, his chance of winning the entire election is at 19%. And then Georgia's at 21% if he does not carry this state, in which, in my opinion, he can still win the election without carrying Georgia, but Donald Trump cannot. So it really depends on ultimately which type of swing or battleground state we're specifically taking a look at. And then, therefore, as for Donald Trump, on the other hand, as for Pennsylvania, Donald Trump's chance of winning the election without carrying this particular Rust Belt state is at 21%. And he's currently at a 69% chance of actually winning the state, which he's sitting at a pretty good, decent shot. As for Wisconsin, Trump's chance of winning the election without carrying this specific state is at 29%. But he's still at roughly 70% chance of carrying all of these states. And then as for Michigan, Donald Trump's chance of winning the election without this state is at 30%, which is a little bit high. And then as for Arizona, Donald Trump's chance of winning the election without winning this state is at 37, which in my opinion, he needs to win Arizona. And then as for Georgia, Trump's chance of winning the election without carrying this particular state is at 39%. Yet again, this is a must-win for Donald Trump if he wants to win the election. As for Nevada, Trump's chance of winning the election without carrying the state is at 46%, which he did this in 2016. He won the election without actually winning Nevada, so it's very possible for the former president. So let's take a look at the likelihood from the Economist forecast of who's actually going to win some of these important battleground states that can ultimately decide the outcome of this year's election cycle. Starting off with Arizona, Donald Trump has a 72% chance in winning this state, which is probably going to happen considering the border crisis. As for Nevada, Trump's chance is a little bit lower, but still significantly high at 65% of flipping this state in 2024. So right off the bat, Trump already flips 2 states so far from the Economist forecast. And then a third flip from Georgia, he's at a 75% chance of winning this state. And Trump is more than likely going to hold on to his victory in North Carolina. He's sitting at a nearly 80% chance of winning this state. And then as for Florida, his chance is at a 94%. In which Biden was actually supposed to win the state according to this exact forecast just 4 years ago. You compare those maps. As for Virginia, Biden's chance of winning the state is currently at a nearly 70% chance. So he's probably going to win the state most likely. And then as for Minnesota, Biden's at a 63% chance of winning this state, which I think he is going to win. Some of these Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Donald Trump is heavily favored at 63% chance of winning this state according to the Economist's likelihood. As for Michigan, this is kind of really like toss-up. Donald Trump's at a 59% chance. So this actually can go either way. This is probably the closest Rust Belt state of them all. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is favored with a 66% chance. These are disastrous numbers for the Biden campaign. If this ends up being the actual numbers on election day or election week, whatever it is, Donald Trump is probably going to win the election. So, yet again, we go back to this. As of today, June 14th, Donald Trump is currently sitting at a 69% chance of winning the election to Joe Biden's 31%. Especially for an incumbent, this is not good news if you are Joe Biden. So at the end of the day, Donald Trump's ultimately going to win according to this forecast from The Economist with 301 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 237. So he is projected to pass 300 as a non-incumbent. So, which is not good news for the incumbent himself, Joe Biden. So there you guys go. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this overall forecast from The Economist in the comment section down below. Do you agree with this particular forecast? Why or why not? And do you think it is more accurate than 538's? And one last final reminder before I end out this video is to subscribe as we're approaching 3,000 and click the bell so you don't miss out on my content. Also, we have memberships. If you are interested, you can find a link in the description section. That's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.